Welcome to Empower, a podcast where Beaumont area employees share their perspectives and encouragement. I'm Taylor Hines, a project engineer for ExxonMobil Beaumont, and your host for today's Empower podcast. Today we'll be discussing empowering emerging leaders. The We Are ExxonMobil framework sets firm expectations for leaders across our company, and today we'll speak with two of our colleagues to share how they apply leadership principles in everything they do. Joining me today is the A-Team. We have Artis Brown, he's our Coordination and Economics Department Head, as well as Alena Savoie, she's our Employee Safety Coordinator. Artis and Alena, thank you both for taking the time to speak with me today on Empower. So first, we'd like to get to know you both a little bit better. Could each of you give me a brief introduction and one interesting fact about yourself?
Thanks, Taylor. I actually was born and raised right here on the Natchez in beautiful Beaumont, Texas. I've been with the company for approximately 10 years now. And so the last 5 years of my career, I've been in the personnel safety department as an auditor and an advisor. And I actually started in the lab doing product specification and quality control. An interesting fact is that I have 11-month-old twin boys, Christian and Caden, and they have started walking, which means I am running.
Artis?
Yeah, I'm from Alabama. I was born and raised there. I hired on with Exxon at the time, which is now, of course, ExxonMobil. It tells you how long I've been around with the company, as a project engineer. And I've been with the company for 25 years, and I would consider it to be a pretty diverse career. Everything from engineering to sales, marketing, operations, planning, supply chain, even now in manufacturing. And if I think about an interesting fact, I love mentoring people, and I was thinking a couple of weeks ago about how many people I've touched in terms of mentoring or advising, and both inside and outside of the company. And it's probably several hundred people, which is something I'm really proud of, and I enjoy doing and will keep doing.
Thank you both for those great introductions. For my next question, I'd like to understand a little bit about how you spend your energy outside of work. What has been some of your favorite things to do in Beaumont?
So I did mention I have twins, but I also have a beautiful kindergartner that moves 100 miles per hour. She's 6 years old. So between the three of them, I really try to maximize the time I spend with my kids. They develop and grow at such an exponential rate, so I make every effort I can to spend as much time as I can with them. So for instance, with my daughter, we do monthly mommy-daughter dates. Sometimes we get mani-pedis or we go skating, and I do my best not to fall and face plant in front of her, but it's really good fun. And we go to the skating rink here in Beaumont. Another thing I like to do is functional fitness, or what most people call CrossFit, and I've become one of those little crazy people that run and flip over tires and jump on boxes, but it's been really impactful on my physical health. So probably our favorite thing to do, or things to do I should say, is take advantage of the events that go on in the city. So like this year, the Mardi Gras parade is supposed to come back, and my daughter's really looking forward to the parade, the YMBL State Fair, and we also like to go watch the fireworks downtown on the river.
That's pretty amazing, Alena. I did CrossFit one time, and we'll leave it at that. Taylor, I like the way you actually asked that question, because you said, how do you spend your energy? And that tells me that this is a deeper conversation that talks about how we invest parts of ourselves. And I start off with my priorities in my life: my faith, my family, my community, and my job, in that order. Those are the things that are most important to me. So I'm absolutely committed to keeping myself grounded spiritually strong, so that I can be effective in all the other things that I do. I think about, obviously, spending enough time with my family so that I can help develop my two black boys. My wife, Kim, and I, she's a personal trainer. We have two boys, 9 and 5, Hunter and Hendrix. and I want to be present on an ongoing basis, I take the responsibility every night I'm home to make sure that I'm the one putting them down for bed, baths, reading the books, praying, and even singing songs. That's my role, and I love doing that. We enjoy, I think about things that I do outside of work. We spend time with each other, whether that's movies. We enjoy doing that. I coach sports with my boys, even sports that I don't know how to play. I try to swindle my way into coaching, and we enjoy eating. That's big for us. So family time is important. Some of the simple things matter for me. And one of my colleagues, one of my friends here, David Gorsuch, he gave me a list of restaurants when I moved to Beaumont back in 2020, and we have been knocking that list off restaurant by restaurant, and we occasionally take selfies and we send those to David from the different restaurants throughout Beaumont.
Artist eating is probably one of my favorite pastimes as well, so I'll have to get that list after we're done here.
I got you covered.
All right, so for my next question, I'd like to ask, what comes to mind when you hear the word empower?
After listening to Artis for a while, you start looking at the conjugation of words. And so I think I've gotten wrapped into that of, okay, what does power mean? And as an employee or representative of ExxonMobil, I feel like I am a part of a bigger organization that empowers our local, regional, and global economy. And what I do matters. And I'm very proud, and I feel very empowered to know that, we provide fuels, we provide gas, diesel, jet, plastics, catalysts, lubricants that really keep the world moving. And not only what we do, but how we do it provides jobs and resources to where I grew up and where I live. And I'm very, very proud of that. On a personal level, as a professional, as a woman, as a Black woman or minority, I am empowered to be representative of the people who look like me. And I want them to be able to be inspired by the things that I do.
I think about empower in the sense of two things. The first is around how we develop people with respect to their competencies. And that's mentoring, that's training, that's coaching, making sure that we're putting people in the best position possible to be successful. And that's irrespective of what business you're in. You want to make sure that people are actually able to do their jobs. The second one is, it's more of a cultural component, which is how do we value diversity in the sense of getting things done in different ways? In other words, my way may not be the only way. My way may not be the greatest way. So do I have the perspective to look at things that other people do, and they may do it differently, and I can appreciate how that might yield a better result, or at least an equal result? Because those two things combined, if we're good at that, now you can get to the true embodiment of empowerment, which is you want to allow people the freedom to be out, to create. When you think about expectation of leaders, that's squarely rooted in inspiring and motivating people, because what it's saying is that we reward people for taking action and making good business decisions. Well, if you're truly empowering people, they have some freedom to do that. And I think if you pull those two things together, that's the perfect combination.
Thank you both for sharing those great perspectives. My next question is a little more personal, and I like to ask, have you ever doubted yourself? And if so, how did you learn to overcome this doubt?
Oh, absolutely. I think probably just as recent as last week, I have had doubt. So personally for me, when I take on a new role or an opportunity, a project, or a hobby, sometimes I will doubt if my experience or my knowledge base is sufficient to take on whatever it is that I'm trying to achieve. And I do have to stop and pause and realize that most of the time, doubt is just that personal conversation that you have with yourself. And so I have a practice where I say, okay, there's two things or two big factors for myself. Are there physical barriers that have to be overcome? And is what I'm trying to achieve learnable? And, majority of the time, 95% of the time, yes, the answer is there are physical barriers that can be overcome. And if you are a learner, you can learn. So you come into the practice where you tell yourself, okay, maybe my physical barriers or my barriers that need to be removed, maybe more than someone else. Maybe my learning curve is steeper, but the roadmap can be set, it can be put in place, and you can get there. And you just have to be willing to navigate that roadmap to get there, no matter what the comparison may be to others or what you feel like is the ideal roadmap for someone else.
Amen to that, what Alena was talking about in terms of doubting yourself. The answer for me is absolutely. And where I am now is very different than where I was when I was younger. But I like to separate me saying doubt versus I don't believe in myself. Because saying, hey, I doubt myself, it's very different than saying I don't believe in myself. And here's why. If you have established sufficient challenges in your life, things that are very difficult to achieve, inherently there will be some doubt. If you've never doubted yourself, in my mind, it says you probably haven't challenged yourself enough. Now, if you go in with the mentality of I don't believe I can do this, you've already lost from the very beginning. So that's a very different thing. I try to use doubt as more like fuel. And I'm sort of saying, in order for me to achieve this thing, whatever my objective is, I need to bring all that I have. I need to do the absolute best that I can. And in turn, I use that doubt as more of a motivator, as a positive factor, as opposed to a negative factor, as a detractor. So that is the way that I think about it now in my life. And again, I haven't always been that way, but doubt is there. But you have to think about, how am I using this to my benefit as opposed to my detriment?
Thank you both for those answers. I'm really interested in your answer to this next question, hoping I can gain some get some advice here. But if you could give some advice to your younger self, what would you say?
For me, I would say change is inevitable, and it is the one constant that is across the board in anyone's life. When you're in middle school, you envision all the great things, all the scary things that's going to happen in high school. When you're in high school, you think about all the things that will happen in college or your young adult life. And when you're a young adult, you think about what your career is going to look like. And so sometimes we can get really caught up into this vision that we have of where we're supposed to be, or, also these fears that we're going to encounter. So my advice is embrace where you are. Where you are physically, mentally, emotionally. Just for today, embrace where you are and say, today is an opportunity to move the needle just a little further. So I'm reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. Actually, correction, Audible is reading Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Agreed.
And so the details of the book, they pretty much lay out how you can take 1% of what you're doing and improve it on like an anatomical level, and these habits, and eventually they make these really big exponential changes. And so I like to think of my life each day that way, is moving the needle about 1%. What can I do that will ultimately make these great 1% changes in my life and the people's lives around me?
Well, somebody is preaching today, y'all. So, Alena, I love that. I think about my life coming up, and whenever I get an opportunity, I try to reflect a bit. I was raised by a very loving disciplinarian, my mom, with my 4 siblings. So she raised 5 children single-handedly, and probably not the best financial conditions. We didn't necessarily have the best schools, but we had everything that we ever needed because my mom made sure of that. And so once I kind of got into college at the University of Alabama, and even particularly once I hired on with ExxonMobil, with a whole bunch of engineers from the top schools in the country and in the world, you do begin to wonder, am I good enough? And the thing that I would say to my younger self is, yeah, man, You absolutely are good enough. Because I gave you my answer earlier about doubt and where I am now. That wasn't the case earlier. So I spent a lot of time wondering if I was going to be able to compete and stand shoulder to shoulder with people. And I think that probably took away more than it should have from a capital perspective. I gave up too much in that regard. And I would reassure myself that you're going to be just fine. Go out, believe in yourself, do your thing, and everything else works out. And I firmly believe in that. That's what I tell myself.
Thank you both. I'm taking a lot of mental notes right now. I think I got a book's worth. So I hope our listeners are jotting these things down as well. So for my last question, I'd like to end with kind of a words of advice or encouragement for everyone out there. So what would be a word of advice or encouragement you'd offer to emerging leaders?
For me, I would say that you want to embrace your opportunities. No matter what your initial perspective may be on it, you just don't know what you'll learn from people or situations or challenges that you may encounter, and the impact that'll have on your growth and the impact that'll have on your life. You want to be committed to lifelong learning, and also that you don't have to be coined a leader to lead. The actions that you take are a real-time portfolio of who you are. As a leader, you want to take those actions that are inspiring, no matter what your title is. And when I say inspiring, I don't mean necessarily be complicit. You want to be firm and consistent in your character. You want to be empathetic to those that are around you and those that report to you or look up to you or take instruction from you. And you want to lead with an attitude of service. The biggest thing that you can do as a leader is to be of service to your family, to your community, to your coworkers, to your friends.
I would talk to people really in terms of the word emerging, because if you think about emerging leaders, young leaders, people might tend to think that you have to get to a destination in order to say, hey, I've arrived as a leader. But in reality, if you look at your life, leadership opportunities exist at very early ages. I reflect back on my time with my mom taking us to church, and whether that's us participating in the choir or helping the deacons with devotion or the usher board or parts and plays. I mean, that's a overly simplistic, basic example, but in reality, the things that we do early on inform how we interact, how we behave, how we lead, in this case, later on. So what I would encourage people to do is think about wherever you are and be proactive, take chances, step out. And by the way, it's okay to fail. But I think taking those opportunities to develop those leadership skills early on, it will definitely pay dividends later. It's not like you can just wake up one day after 40 years and say, oh, okay, I think I just want to be, it doesn't quite work that way. So I would really encourage people to take advantage of all the opportunities at whatever stage you are in life, because certainly leadership opportunities exist in this world. Whether that's at your job, whether that's in school, whether that's in the community, whatever it is, the opportunities exist, and I always encourage people to take advantage of it.
Artis, Alena, thank you both for joining me today, and thank you everyone for listening. Join us next time for more impactful conversations on Empowered.